Greetings, everybody, and welcome into Tuesday afternoon. Would you believe it? I almost forgot I had to do wide receivers today. I know the rust is here and it is real, man. But anyway, we're here. We're going to dive in. I am Choppadong, lead content editor, senior contributor, and coach, DFSArmy.com. All of the pertinent information down there in the description. I'm also going to link the basics to box checking, the position by position videos, 15 or so minutes each on quarterbacks, wide receivers, running backs, whatever, so that you can kind of get an idea of what we're going to do as we then turn it into week one and go searching by those parameters and find the best of the best, the most consistent metrics that produce value for our given players. And we're going to discuss a little bit along the way. Now, yesterday was a little bit of a rusty video, but we did do tight ends and defenses, and we settled on a few good ones. And I think that you can go back, obviously, and watch that one if you want to scroll back a little bit and skip forward through some of the mumbo jumbo that I tell you, like become a member of DFSArmy.com, use coupon code CHOP, CHOP, get that 20% off discount. Like, subscribe, hit the notification bell on the videos, all of that good stuff. But what we want to do today is we want to talk wide receivers. So if you wanted to go back and do defenses and tight ends, you can certainly scroll back in the channel, which I do appreciate, of course, and look for things there. But let's dive into the research station since that's where we love to go. We're going to turn off the 820 game because we don't want to mess with that. Actually, we're going to go to the wide receivers tab. We're in the quarterback tab. And from here, we're going to turn off the 820 game. Now we're dealing with just the main slate. And Fanduel Draftkings, like I said before, doesn't really matter which one you play on because what we're trying to do is we're using different parameters to target wide receivers. And what we know about wide receivers is we're not so worried about home favorites necessarily anymore. We're worried really and truly more about targets and target share and red zone work and all of that good stuff. So the first thing I typically do is I scroll over here to the 2018 stats until we get newer stats that populate in. And I want anyone above about 7 targets. And this is going to be interesting because this is going to cut out some players like probably some Chris Godwin, probably maybe even some Tyler Boyd, maybe some players like that that are in good positions this week that we're all keying on, and it's going to weed them out right away. So we don't necessarily want to do that completely. D.D. Westbrook probably disappears. We don't want to lose those guys completely. Maybe we'll go back and scoop them up. But as the season populates through week 2, week 3, week 4, this is what we're going to be doing as we go down the road. We're going to filter out greater than 7 touches per game. We want an average of guys getting 7, 8 targets per game. I said touches, I meant targets. And that really cuts us down to just the list right here. Those are the best of the best. We want activity inside the red zone. We want targets inside the 20. We want receptions inside the 20. We want them inside the 10. And we see a bunch of green. That's a good sign. Green is good. Red is bad. But when we scroll back over this way, we can see a little bit of DVP, opponent wide receiver points allowed. We can see Minnesota is not a great spot for Julio Jones. We can see that Jacksonville is not a good spot for Tyreek Evans. We can look back and see that that Indianapolis is not in a good spot, for Keenan Allen. But what we're looking for is some of these softer matchups here, like Thielen and Diggs. They're going to go overlooked this week, guys, and they get targets. They get targets, they get red zone work. I know Dalvin Cook is the latest craze right now, but they're going to be very low owned for tournaments because everybody's going Dalvin Cook in their primary running back spots because he featured so well in the preseason, and the offense is tending to shift his way, and nobody trusts Kirk Cousins anymore. And all of those little factors, if this game shoots out with Minnesota and Atlanta, then we can expect some good games out of these receivers too, and they just might surprise you, given that on the main slate, Julio Jones is not in a great matchup. Odell Beckham is okay. Mike Evans is okay. Tyreek Hill's not in a great matchup. So you're already sitting at Thielen and Diggs in the top 5, probably receivers on the slate. One of them will probably be top 5, maybe top 3, and might even win the darn thing if he gets into the end zone twice. For tournament plays, the ceiling is there. Now, for floor plays, which is what we're really more looking for when we're talking about best of the best and hitting value, we want to look into some of these guys a little bit deeper. And one of the areas that we can go, now that we've got the targets narrowed down, so we can start looking by price. This week is weird because there is an inflection point in the correlation of hitting value, believe it or not, that the very, very expensive wide receivers hit value more often. Wide receivers, both FanDuel and DraftKings, wide receivers over $8,500 in salary have shown significant statistical evidence that they hit value more consistently than lower priced wide receivers. And that's hard to believe, especially on a site like DraftKings where you get a full PPR and then somebody like a D.D. Westbrook can go off. Now that's true. He's in a great matchup this week, D.D. Westbrook is. But traditionally, if we ran a slate 100 times, these $8,500 and above receivers hit their mark more often than anyone else below that. So that's interesting. That doesn't mean that you throw all of the other parameters out the window and give this all of the weight, of an elephant sitting on your throat. You don't give it that much priority, but you certainly need to pay attention to it going forward, because as prices go up in this industry week in and week out, we're going to see the cream rise to the top, and we're going to see the more consistent receivers rise to the top. That's how this works. And that's why now it may not work in week 1, but that's why this is going to work in week 9 or week 10. So right now I would ignore Julio Jones, even though he hits that $8,500 mark on Fanduel, and nobody's really at 8,500 on DraftKings. I would instead be looking for some of the applied team totals out of Las Vegas. So if I scroll over this way and I see the team totals, the first thing I'm going to do is look for anybody under 18 points, because less than 18 points seems to be another inflection point, especially somebody who's a road dog. There's Tyler Boyd. He's the only one there. But that's why Tyler Boyd's such a good play this week. Why? He's going to get the targets. He's going to get the red zone work. He's a road dog, which is another factor that we look for, and he's implied to score under 18 points. Why is that significant? Garbage time. Garbage time, garbage time, garbage time. It affects the receiver much more than it does the opposing quarterback. Everybody 2-3 years ago was all over Blake Bortles, king of garbage time, blah, 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 blah. You realize that if Blake Bortles throws for 100 yards and a touchdown, he gets about 8 points. 4 for the yards, 4 for the touchdown. If Tyler Boyd is the primary beneficiary of that 100 yards, let's say Tyler Boyd gets 60 of them, and Tyler Boyd gets the touchdown, Tyler Boyd gets 12 points to Blake Bortles 8. I mean, hypothetically, Blake Bortles, they never played together. But you see where I'm going with this? This is the situation where when Seattle has the game in hand, sits back, pounds the clock, pounds it down, and Cincinnati starts playing catch up, they're going to be thumping that ball all over the place. They're going to be taking shots with the pass. That helps the defense. It helps Seattle's defense, but that also helps the primary receiver in Tyler Boyd, being that there's no A.J. Green this week. Another thing that I would look for is I would take the team total and I would cancel off that, bring everybody back, and I would sort by greater than 26.5, which gets me 27 and higher, which is also what I'm looking for. And there's 3 more guys for us: Tyreek Hill, Keenan Allen, and Alshon Jeffrey. Now, I would look at Alshon Jeffrey and say, I don't know what I'm getting out of him, honestly. Maybe he is the stud number 1. Maybe Zach Ertz is going to steal some of those. Maybe Deshaun Jackson gets a deep shot. I don't know. There's a lot of options in that Philly offense that I look at this, and I don't feel that this quite has the floor to it that I want. It probably has some of the upside, but I just don't feel that it has the safer floor that makes me want to count all of these parameters into play, getting all of the targets and getting whatever. I'm going to look at a Tyreek Hill and say he's in a bad matchup, but they are implied to score the points. So it wouldn't surprise me if Tyreek breaks a big one. But Jalen Ramsey pretty much shut him down last year in their matchup. I think that Tyreek went 2 for 20 or 2 for 40, something like that, and no touchdowns. So that spooks me off of the situation just a little bit. And as you're going to hear on other podcasts around the industry, that kind of opens up Sammy Watkins. Because even though the other corner in Jacksonville is pretty good, Sammy Watkins, or slot corner, whatever, Sammy Watkins is going to get a lot of the targets when Tyreek is covered. You might see some Damian Williams. You might see some of the running back committee action going on with Boffs and stuff like that. Mahomes may be spectacular, may do a lot of stuff. The one name I'm not hearing mentioned is I don't hear anyone necessarily paying up for Travis Kelce. I think Travis Kelce is going to take a lot of the targets. I think I think that Mahomes and Kelce is actually a decent GPP type of pivot stack. Something low owned, something high priced. You've got the value at running back, especially if Zeke misses, which, I mean, Zeke's in Dallas today. The whole world's going nuts over it. I think that I don't know which is getting more coverage today: Zeke in Dallas, landing in Dallas, or Hurricane Dorian potentially landing in Florida or skirting the coast as it scoots up to the north. It makes me wonder which one the news is bringing more attention to. But for me and my purposes, I'm paying attention to the Tony Pollard and the Zeke news because if I get to roster Tony Pollard, of course, I'm going to be looking to pay up. I have a lineup already in place that has Kelsey and Mahomes in it, and I think that it's a pretty strong. It's probably not going to have, the greatest play or the greatest floor this particular week, dollar for dollar basis to be using in cash games when there's a lot of other great plays out there, more balanced construction that you can build and whatnot. But for tournaments, I don't think I would sleep on Mahomes or Kelsey. That connection's pretty strong. Keenan Allen doesn't get a lot of red zone looks if we scroll all the way over here. I mean, he is active in the red zone, but Hunter Henry gets a lot, and you're going to see some Eckler or some Justin Jackson or whatever in there as well. I don't know that he's necessarily a red zone force per se. I know he doesn't have a lot of TD upside in a given week. Now he might be fine this week. This week would be a week that he's going to do it because he's implied to score over 27 points, or not him, but the offense is implied to score over 20. There's 3 touchdowns, almost 4 touchdowns right there. If they score 4 touchdowns, Keenan might get one. Probably should get one. Running backs get 1 or 2. A couple of receivers get 1 each. It's not like Rivers is necessarily going to run one in. He's not exactly Cam Newton. So, maybe this is the week where you would run a Keenan Allen. I think there are other options for the price in cash that we'd rather roster. So if I go ahead and I turn this off again, actually, let's keep the team total on. And let's see if we can't find something there. But we'll take away. Actually, we got to turn it back off. What were we taking away? The targets? Let's go expand those targets back out. Let's clear off the targets per game. Let's instead, these are guys only over 27 points. So we're going to have to clear that off too because we just don't have much of a list to select from. So let's go ahead and clear this off. And let's go back over here and let's decide we're going to sort by targets from descending order. And let's just see who gets the most targets per game. Across the 2018 season, Julio Jones, we already talked about him. Odell Beckham probably will be okay, but might not be in necessarily the best, of the higher price guys. We may not be able to get up to them. Diggs and Thielen, I do believe, are going to be under-owned this week. Jarvis Landry, there's a sneaky one that not a lot of people are talking about. Not a lot of TD upside, but on a site like a DraftKings or a fantasy draft where you need some floor in that full point PPR, that helps. Mike Evans it wouldn't surprise me if he's the top scoring wide receiver on the week. He's going to go under-owned because everybody's on Godwin. And I mean, rightfully so. Every lineup build that I do, I keep getting torn between Mike Evans and Godwin for my Tampa Bay exposure, and I sit back and I go, man, I just know that Godwin's a smart play dollar for dollar. He's the value play. He's too cheap for his price. But that just means that, we're going to jinx the damn situation, and Mike Evans is the one that's going to go off. Mike Evans is a great tournament option this week. T.Y. Hilton, probably not so much. Tyreek Hill already talked about him. Keenan Allen just talked about him. Woods, Cooks, Kupp, all fine plays in the LA Rams offense. Galladay would be okay if Detroit wasn't so hip to slowing the damn game down and run the ball so much. I mean, I don't mind him, but I don't think that he has necessarily the same, floor as a Tyler Boyd at the same price. Now, here's the one. Tyler Boyd and Tyler Lockett. I don't see Lockett on this list, but here was something I was thinking about this morning. Tyler Boyd is the underdog. A lot of people are going to be saying, well, Tyler Lockett's in a better position. Is he? Tyler Lockett is going to be in a position where his team should be well out in front in that second half, and they should be shutting it down. It's already a team that loves to run. Chris Carson's in the position there. I know home favored, implied to score over 25 points is good for the quarterback, but it's also great for the running back. And it's an offense that tends to keep, I think that Russell Wilson only averaged 28 pass attempts per game last year, and that most quarterbacks are up into the mid-30s these days. So they clearly don't want to run the ball or don't want to throw the ball. They want to run it. So that takes consideration, that takes risk and applies it to the Tyler Lockett situation. Even though he's the only receiver in that offense that's worth a darn, should get all of the targets. I think the exact same situation is going to be across the ball. And I think that Tyler Boyd is going to find himself in a situation where maybe his running backs get scripted out of the game for the most part. The last couple of years, Seattle has not been a high turnover generating type of offense, hasn't generated a ton of sacks necessarily, not the same defense they used to be. So maybe there's something there. I know that the road dog under 18 points is a thing, and that puts Tyler Boyd in a great spot. To me, I would take Tyler Boyd over Tyler Lockett. I would certainly take him over Kenny Galladay. We don't know necessarily what we're going to get out of the Arizona-Detroit game either. Cooks, Amari Cooper, nah, I don't know. I was high on him at the very, very beginning, but the more I looked, the more I got options at the 7,500 and below price range. Alshon Jeffrey, Corey Davis, no. Larry Fitzgerald, that wouldn't be surprising early in the season if we were looking at a Larry Fitzgerald couple of games that are pretty good. They're tournament plays only. Marvin Jones, definite tournament play only. Cooper Kupp probably could be considered in any format that you want to use if you want to go there. But at 6,800, I might prefer a Tyler Boyd. Even now, Tyler Boyd maybe would be more of a DraftKings type of play for me, so I didn't see his salary over there. But because Cooper Kupp does get a ton of red zone work. Don't necessarily know that the red zone work's going to go. Gurley gets a lot of red zone work, but Cooper Kupp definitely gets the passing game red zone work, being that they don't have a tight end really that they utilize. Shepard, Robbie Anderson, Humphreys. This is a great tournament play in my opinion. D.D. Westbrook, though, at 5,900 is somebody that I would definitely be considering. 4,800 on DraftKings. That's a pretty doggone inexpensive dude for somebody who's facing an offense in Kansas City that gives up a ton of points. Ton of points against. And he's the unequivocal number one in that offense in a team that game script wise should be chucking it late. It's more garbage time. If you ran D.D. Westbrook and Tyler Boyd, you've got a couple of good garbage time candidates that should have a high floor, especially on a full PPR site like a DraftKings or a fantasy draft. The noon one, Deshaun Jackson, John Brown. John Brown GPP flyer. He's a lid lifter in Buffalo. I would have some shares of him if I was going in larger format, maybe some MME type of stuff as well. There's Godwin sitting down here. Only low targets last year are keeping him off of there. But to be honest with you, 6,900 is too cheap on FanDuel for the role that he's assumed. 6,200 is a little bit more reflective over on DraftKings. Snead, Sanu, Ridley. Ridley would be a tournament play. Kirk's probably a tournament play. Jamison Crowder's a no ceiling, moderate floor type play. Sammy Watkins would be the play. I see. I'd pay up $500 for D.D. Westbrook over Jamison Crowder. Now 4,100 here is $800 savings. Might take that. I don't think I'm rostering Crowder over D.D. Westbrook. But anyway, Cole Beasley's a little sneaky one to me. I want to see how his first couple of weeks turn out. And I just keep looking. Curtis Samuel's too cheap. 5,900 another one. That goes into the Tyler Boyd range on FanDuel. I would probably take Tyler Boyd over Curtis Samuel, but Curtis Samuel would make a nice pivot off of Tyler Boyd. Albert Wilson, don't want to sleep on him this year. There's Lockett down here at 6,800, probably a little bit too pricey considering I've got D.D. Westbrook and Tyler Boyd down in that beneath that range. And I'd probably take Chris Godwin over Tyler Lockett just because that game is scheduled to score more points. And Chris Godwin's going to they don't have a running back situation. Tyler Lockett definitely has a running back situation that he's competing for, competing for attention over in a very positive script for the running back type of game. There's no running back necessarily in Tampa Bay that's really going to be taking the lion's share of the work. They might be in a shootout, so they might have to end up throwing the ball all day long anyway, and that's going to feed Mike Evans and Godwin, and that's why for 6,900, I'd lean Godwin. So I've already got my receivers. If you heard the three that I just keep echoing, we go down this list a little bit, and now we're just kind of turning into trash. So that'll wrap up your receivers for today. This is kind of how I do it. I'm going to sort out by targets. I'm going to grab the first few on the list. I'm going to put them on my short list, and then I'm going to scroll through here looking for who I would really would want to key on because week one we don't know what's changed. By week four we'll have some numbers. We'll have some pretty good numbers. I've noticed week one is great. It surprises us in a couple of ways, and then week two usually goes the opposite direction with the same teams because they end up in a completely different matchup and do a completely different game plan. Takes week three, week four to start hashing out and seeing how these teams' personalities really want to play this year and maybe what we can exploit going forward. But for week one, I think we've got a few decent targets, a good solid core to build around. These cash lineups are starting to build themselves. If you want the coaching, you want to talk, you want to see the cash cores, you're going to want the NFL coaching sheets, which are on this page right here. You're going to want those from Football Geek and Cash Keg, and you're going to want to definitely be talking showdowns Thursday night with DFS up north. And I mean, I've already loaded up a lot of cash scenarios for the showdown because I think it's just going to be ripe with recreational players and people that don't really know what they're doing in that format. So you're going to want to know what you're doing. And we've got a couple of situations and coaching rooms and sheets set up to guide you down the correct path of proven success based on analyzing past contests and seeing what typically works and what typically doesn't. That's another article that you can find on the NFL tab. It's a showdown breakdown type article, and it's a phenomenal deep dive into GPPs and what's been working. So hopefully you see a lot of that stuff. You want to jump in, you want to ask us questions and get the feedback that you deserve to make your lineups better. That's what the coaches are here for. That's what the experts are here for. You can hit me up anytime on Twitter. You can hit me up in our coaching room. You can even comment here on the YouTube videos. And I will drop the link in there for the shorter version, 15 minutes a pop of wide receivers, running backs, tight ends, all of that stuff. Come back tomorrow. Tomorrow we'll do running backs. We'll box check those bad boys. Hopefully we've got some word on the Zeke and Tony Pollard issue because right now I think most of us have Tony Pollard sitting in our dummy lineups. And if Zeke signs, we got to go blow them all up. So that's going to really put the focus back on these wide receivers as well. Hopefully we talk to you guys really, really soon. Go down there, use coupon code CHOP, CHOP, 20% off discount, dfsarmy.com, and look for the link down there to the other videos or the other article with the videos in it that I'm going to post here shortly. Take care, guys. We'll talk to you tomorrow.